Swim check 1, 2. Bike check 1, 2. Run check 1, 2. I think we're ready. Let's try this. Welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast, a podcast where we explore the sport of triathlon from a variety of perspectives to help beginner triathletes on their journey. I am your host, Mashonda Shines. Welcome to another edition of Try Beginner's Luck. What? We are already in the third month of this new year, and y'all, I am so thrilled to have this young lady with me on today. So a little bit of backstory, because most of my guests at this point are either people I've had relationships with or have had encounters with along the way who've been interesting, at least to me, and I hope they have been to you thus far. And it shows me the power of community. And I couldn't be more excited to tell you this story. So in 2020, a lot of things happened. A lot of not so good things happened. And as a result of those not so good things happening, the world shifted. At some points, it seemed divided. But what happened was action had to take place. And companies, organizations, and communities rallied together to try their best to at least start the dialogue about what we need to do to move the needle forward. I heard about a symposium of sorts that this organization was doing and got in at the last moment. It was a roundtable. And for this roundtable, I happened to be the only one there. And I had the lovely, lovely pleasure of having two beautiful women all to myself to discuss this important topic about diversity, equity, inclusion, and access with USA Triathlon. I was blown away by the interest level and didn't even know what to expect. And as a result, I was able to meet Miss Megan Ritch, who is the Manager of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access for USA Triathlon. She's been with USA Triathlon since 2012, focusing on specifically diversity and inclusion since 2017. Now, in Megan's current role, she manages the program development focusing on growing women's engagement in multisport. Remember what I said? We're in the third month of the year, which is March, and March is what? Women's History Month. And so in building USA Triathlon's Together We Thrive initiative, inclusive policy development, and DEIA resource development, y'all, I have Miss Megan Ritch with me. Megan, welcome to the Try Beginner's Luck podcast.
Ms. Shonda, I am so excited to be here. Going back to that roundtable that you were on with myself and Melissa from our team was just the most fun. I loved all of the roundtables, but I do have to say that that was one of my favorites. Really exciting to get to hear about your story in triathlon and how passionate you are about sharing it with others. And I think one of my favorite things that you mentioned to us was your triathlon themed birthday party, which I thought was the coolest thing. Oh, I just loved it so much. So super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, so cool. Thank you for being here. And yes, the triathlon themed birthday party that technically didn't happen because of COVID. And this past year, in 2021, I had Leslie Tooks on my podcast, and we talked about that because she's the one who introduced me to triathlon or introduced me to sport. And that was her idea. She did triathlon birthday parties. And so what I did was just try to mimic what she did to try to build engagement and to help grow the sport and get people involved in it to love it as much as I do.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah. So where do we start, Megan? Many people will think you are the beauty and brains behind this operation, but people probably want to know, are you an athlete?
Well, I think in my heart, I'm an athlete. Um, I kind of had a really untraditional introduction to triathlon. A lot of times, people who are runners or swimmers or cyclists decide they want to add to what they're already doing. So, taking on triathlon, I actually came from the golf world. So I played golf in high school. So I started when I was like 5 years old, played all through school, high school, college, and then I was a golf pro for a couple years before I went back to school to get a master's degree. So while I was a golf pro, it was an interesting time. It was a really interesting time in my life, and I was looking for ways to like help myself feel stronger, build, confidence, self-esteem. And I don't know what happened. I walked by the magazine section at Barnes and Noble, and there was a Triathlete Magazine, and I'm like, that could be a really fun challenge to like put myself through, like doing something that like I didn't think I could do that would make me feel like a strong individual. So almost, I guess it's been just over 10 years ago, I did my first and only triathlon. It was an Olympic distance triathlon. I started pretty bold. It was an ocean swim, which was a challenge in itself, but super fun. Uh, I think when I got there, the part that just hit me the most is like I prepared for a triathlon. I did the race. I did better than I thought I was going to do. But like the impact that it had on me was the way that I was treated by the people who were there doing the race as well. So it was my very first race, and I was in like a novice category. There were like four of us in the novice category, but just a ton of really experienced triathletes. I mean, given it was an ocean swim, so a lot of triathletes who have done events before were racing. And just the way that I was welcomed in, like I met a woman at Packet Pickup who helped me with my like body marking, helped me set up my transition, invited me for a swim later that afternoon. So it was like someone I had never met before, and they were like, "Oh, you're new, let me help you out." So like having that sense of being so welcome in a sport that I had not even done yet was just this new experience that I really decided I wanted to be a part of. And then coincidentally, I interviewed to be the intern at USA Triathlon about a week after I did my triathlon. So even
Wow.
though I'm not racing triathlon consistently, I still consider myself a triathlete because I've done one. Once you're a triathlete, you're always a triathlete. And I've found a way to kind of give back to triathlon. So having the opportunity to participate in a sport that is so welcoming was like so impactful, because again, when I was in the golf industry, I did not feel super welcome. Being a young female, I was based in the South. It was just not the environment that I wanted to be in. So finding a sport that had that welcoming atmosphere, I wanted to find a way to make that something that everyone could experience. So creating a safe and welcoming triathlon community is pretty much what my life calling is, I believe. And I'm super fortunate that that is what my focus is with USA Triathlon, through diversity, equity, inclusion, and access.
I can tell Megan is not a rookie with interviews, and I'm sitting up here like, where? Like, yes, yes.
I really
Wow.
love
You said what now?
I really love talking and talking about triathlon. So like once I get going, it's hard to stop.
Honey, make my life easy. Child, keep talking, keep talking. I'll sit back and sip my water. No, and it is so amazing to hear you say that, were a golfer all your life. Shout out to all the golfers out there who golf and do triathlons and do all sorts of things. Golfing is a very interesting sport where I can see how there's, some crossover transferable skills. And I love how you were able to compare it, how golf wasn't as welcoming, but triathlons were welcoming. And it immediately had you wanting to be engaged from that moment. And every guest that I've had on this podcast, now that we're in our second season, so excited. Oh no, thrilled. Thrilled is the word for this season. Um, they've all said the same thing, welcoming. However, you mentioned something towards the end of your the end of what you just said about how you decided to focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. Now, yes, triathlon is a very welcoming sport. And I remember telling a young lady, one of the relay teams, that she was like, no, it's not welcoming. I said, no, it is welcoming. And what I should have said after that is just not diverse. And then I should have said, it's just not equitable. And then I should have said, it's not inclusive. And then I should have said, it's not accessible. So you have all of those things. And I don't know where the W comes in at, because I don't know if that would make it a good word, but triathlon is very welcoming. It's just not diverse. It's not equitable. It's not accessible, and it's not inclusive yet. However, you guys are making some really good strides, and I've seen so much growth in the last year alone. Tell me about the work that you're doing and how you're moving the needle forward. And I'll stop there.
For sure. And I think you bring up a really good point. Like, for some people it is welcoming. So like for me, I was super lucky that I met a female who I could relate to at Packet Pickup, who helped me throughout the like setup process, throughout race day. Like, I saw her on the course, and it was someone who I could see as myself. And so that's one of the challenges that we have, is finding role models, mentors in the sport who have similar backgrounds to our underrepresented athletes. Having and they say this a lot, like, you're more likely to stay in a sport if your coach is someone who looks like you and has similar backgrounds as you and similar values as you. So that's right now where the gap is, and what we're working on filling. Some of the things that we're working on that we really kicked off in 2020 was our Together We Thrive diversity, equity, inclusion, and access initiative. And so this is our umbrella program for everything diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. It houses resources, so resource development. We want to empower our coaches and race directors, officials, and clubs to really take a stance and be impactful at that grassroots level. The great thing about the United States is, there are so many communities out there, but they're all different. So making resources that can be tailored and scaled towards those different communities is something that is a huge focus for us. This year, we were fortunate enough to host our second annual Together We Thrive Actions for Change Summit, which is a really cool opportunity to check out individuals, clubs, coaches, race directors who are out there and actually making an impact. So using it as like a best practices summit is a good way to say it. So best practices summit, learning from people who are having an impact, making an impact, and really lifting those individuals up who are already doing it at the grassroots level. With USA Triathlon, it's hard for us to manage things at a community level from the national level. So it is a lot of empowering those out there who are passionate about making a change to take action.
Again, mouthful, and we have to unpack that. What I think I failed to do was really set the viewers and listeners up for success. Mm-hmm. And I want to go backwards, and then we can speed back up. What truly is diversity, equity, inclusion, and access? Because that word is a buzzword. It's a new word. You have people hiring for diversity and inclusion consultants. What does that mean in a nutshell?
For sure. Yeah. It's a great question, because a lot of organizations define diversity, equity, and inclusion differently. So for us, diversity focuses on having a wide array of people of different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, religion, gender identity, really just making sure that there are opportunities for individuals who are currently underrepresented. So that's our diversity aspect. The equity the equity aspect is fair treatment. So making sure that everyone has fair treatment within the sport, fair access to the sport. This is what we talk about a lot when we are looking at breaking down barriers of cost to the sport. So making sure that there is an access in terms of equipment and being able to do multi-sport when you don't necessarily have access to a pool, stuff like that. Safe roads to bike on. So that's what we look at on the equity piece. For inclusion, it's making sure everyone feels welcome. So it's great if we bring in diverse athletes, but one and done isn't going to create sustainable change. So with inclusion, it's making sure that we can keep athletes in the sport. And then access is one that's special for us. So not a lot of companies and sports have access as part of their diversity, equity, and inclusion programming. We've added access in since we oversee paratriathlon. So access is a huge word. Accessibility, access is a huge word in the para community, so we added that in as kind of a way to include para athletes and adaptive athletes in the DEIA work that we're doing. So that focuses on creating opportunities for adaptive sport. So we, worked with my team Triumph in Wisconsin this past year to have a challenge team wave, which is a really cool way to have adaptive athletes participate in our national championships. We are getting ready to start working with Special Olympics on a few things. So this will fall into the accessibility part, which is super exciting. And then it encompasses our para program.
When you
So
said
a lot going on. It's so exciting. There's so many different aspects to DEIA, but they all have the same goal of making sure that triathlon is a safe and welcoming and inclusive sport for everyone.
when you said Special Olympics, of course, I had to do a little smile
Yeah.
because I'm excited about that partnership.
Yeah.
But most importantly, I'm just excited to hear you break down each of those acronyms or each of those words in the acronym, just to give people a greater understanding of what we are talking about, what the overall objective is, and how we can help in our own way. So for a beginner athlete, we're here for beginners and those who just love this podcast, who have been in this sport for a while and just are supportive. How can, or what would you tell a new beginner who might not have seen anyone that looks like them, who may not have access to the sport? Like, how would you tell them to engage with USA Triathlon or get involved in sport?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really great question. So, our team is here to be a resource. Our membership team, myself on the diversity and inclusion side, you can always reach out to us with any questions. We answer questions from, should I get a wetsuit? Like, what kind of bike can I use? Do you have resources on setting up a transition? So this is all stuff that we provide, and our membership and constituent relations team is incredible, and they are more than happy to talk you through any challenges or fears that you have about entering the sport. I think that it is a really interesting question when you look at how or what athletes should do when they're at their first race or their first club meeting and they don't see any athletes who look like them. And I would just encourage those athletes to, don't give up, stick with it. It's a good opportunity to bring your friends, invite people into the sport so you can kind of form that community, that triathlon community where you are. And I've talked to a lot of our members, obviously not all of them because we have 100,000 members, but most people in the sport love the sport and they're passionate about it and they're willing to help you out. So don't be afraid to, make friends at the race or ask, the person next to you in transition, if there's something you're unsure about, just ask them. I feel like most people in our community want to see the sport grow and they love to see, new athletes out there. The more athletes who are in our sport, the more opportunities our sport has, the bigger we can grow. So stick with it. Don't get frustrated. I know everyone's experience is different. So bringing your friends in, and then trying to form those connections.
Y'all can see I don't have nothing to do. I'm just listening and getting all sidetracked because my brain is like, "Do-do-do-do-do. Oh my God, information overload, information overload." Well, wow, that is, that is really good to know. I forgot my question that I even asked you because you were like spitting it out. Megan, you're so good at this.
For new triathletes, what advice?
I finally got back to it. My brain had to slow down a second, like, process. Yeah.
During the race, though, if you want another tidbit, and I've thought about this a lot since my first triathlon, I went at it without a coach and I, researched online myself. And one thing I wish that I would have done as a new triathlete doing a swim that was, wetsuit legal and I wore a wetsuit, I had no idea that I needed to use Body Glide like on my wrist and around my neck. And it was like the most painful thing. I wasn't sore after the race. I just had like, what is it? Sand rash, wetsuit rash. I was more like annoyed with that than like any muscle soreness. So for all of you racing with wetsuits out there, Body Glide is your friend.
Body Glide is everybody's friend for every part of any part that can glide together. And if you know why I said that, then you know. But no, I was actually going to bring that up a little bit later down the line. I was like, what's one thing you would have known is, and that Body Glide thing is real, especially for your first wetsuit. So that is interesting. And I thought you were going to go telling people to get a coach, because I think that's important too,
Yeah.
for a beginner. And with you working at USA Triathlon, you mentioned earlier, pitting, well, not pitting against each other, but connecting coaches with athletes who look like themselves. I think that is important, especially from a cultural perspective, but also from an understanding perspective. But it's not a necessity in order to be successful, but it is helpful in learning how to engage with the sport. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. From my experience in sport, growing up as a female golfer, so a female in a sport that is very male dominated, I was incredibly lucky to find a female coach at a very young age. So my coach all the way through my first 2 years of college was female. My last 2 years of college, it was male, and there was a vast difference in how they coached women. And there's some things that female coaches understand for a female athlete that my male coaches didn't understand. So having that, resource to go to when, maybe I didn't feel great 1 week out of every month and it was hard to like feel motivated when I was practicing, stuff like that. It was very beneficial to have a female coach who knew what I was going through. And you're right. One of our biggest challenges is having access to diverse coaches. And it's something that is a priority for it, diversify our coaching pool. We started in 2020 a scholarship program for level 1 coaching certification. And the goal is to use that scholarship to encourage individuals who are from diverse backgrounds who are not represented in our current coaching pool to go through the certification process, and kind of get that background of, what is taught in USA Triathlon's coaching certification. If you are looking for a coach, reach out to us. We have a find a coach tool on our website. But if you're looking for a coach that has a specific background that you're interested in, if you're looking for a female coach versus a male coach, we can take a look in your area and pull out coaching options for you. That's something we can totally do. So reach out to USA Triathlon if you ever are interested in a coach, if you have questions about what you should expect from a coach, what coaching processes look like, or if you're interested in being a coach. There are some people out there who never thought about coaching, and then they, did a few triathlons, were really into it, went through the coaching certification program, and now it's like a huge passion of theirs, bringing individuals into the sport as a coach. So if you've ever had an inkling, like you have had that thought in the back of your head that I could be a really cool coach, you probably could be a really cool coach, and we can help get you the education that you need to, start bringing athletes in.
Wow. I interviewed a beginner last year who was new to triathlon, who was new to sport. He taught himself to swim, or learned how to swim during the pandemic. And what he said at the end of his interview was that he wanted to be a coach. And so he is an ideal person to reach out to, because he was like, yeah, I want to be a coach. And so I think that is so, you're so right that you may see that you want to do it. And a lot of coaches are still actively participating in sports. So you can do both and still
Absolutely.
encourage others. And I would highly suggest that. And, you know, it's good to know what your coaches should know. And I would say sometimes coming to events like Together We Thrive or
Mhm.
Endurance Exchange are great opportunities to learn what to look for in a coach.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of times you're like, well, I don't know what to look for in a coach. I don't know what to do. Well, I will say the resources that USA Triathlon has on their website it's good. But if you are a more interactive person and you want to hear from a variety of coaches, then when the Together We Thrive conference comes around, it's usually in what, November?
Yeah, November. Yeah.
November, sign up for that. And then Endurance Exchange, what happens anytime between the first quarter, look out for that. Sign up for the USA Triathlon emails. You get that with your membership. But if you're doing the one-off memberships, then it's probably a lot easier for you to do it if you just get a membership, and then you get access to even more resources and benefits from the new collaboration that you guys have done with Outside. So there's just a lot of things that are open and available to you if you're interested and if you want to get engaged. Yes, we want to move the needle forward, but we honestly can't do that without you, the
Yeah, absolutely.
listeners, you, the viewers. So hear what we're saying, do what you need to do, get involved, get engaged, and get the information that you need. Don't be like me, 7 years in the game, and just like, you got all this information. What? For real? Don't be like me. I say be better than me and get what you need up front. So that makes you a better athlete and uh, a better steward, a better athlete and a better steward of this sport.
Yeah. Oh,
Because the
that's
more, oh, go ahead.
I think that's awesome. And our team, we love talking about triathlon. Like if you have any questions and you can't find the answer, reach out to us and we can provide you with the answer, or we can, point you in the right direction. Especially as a new triathlete, like I love talking to athletes who are like, I don't know how to set up a transition area. What should I do? I'm nervous about the swim. What should I look out for? And then, seeing the results come through and seeing that, this athlete did complete their race and they did a great job. And like, we love that. Like, that's what we're here for, is to help athletes enter the sport and have a really positive experience. So feel free. Our constituent relations team, myself, like we love talking about triathlon and helping people out. So always reach out if you can't find what you're looking for, or even if you just want to say, hey, we love we love those positive interactions.
You know, Megan, I learn something new every time I talk to you. I promise you, you are a wealth of knowledge. And this is something that I'm learning literally live and in the moment. You all have a constituency relations department. Who
Yeah.
knew? What does that even consist of? I know this is not your lane, but I'm interested and
Oh,
I'm sure the people want to know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Our constituent relations team is awesome. So anytime you email USA Triathlon, if it's, info at USA Triathlon, national events at USA Triathlon, membership at USA Triathlon, it goes to our constituent relations team and they are the ones who answer you. If you call our information phone number, they're the ones that you talk to on the phone. They work with athletes, coaches, race directors, and clubs. And they are like the wealth of knowledge. They know the ins and outs of USA Triathlon, all of the programs that we have going on. It's really kind of like this vault of all of the triathlon information that you could want. Like they hold that and they are the ones who share it out with our members, coaches, and race directors and clubs. So it's the group that you talk to if you ever have an issue. Sometimes it's like that customer service, it's oh, my registration didn't go through, or oh, I lost my password, stuff like that. So it's those individuals that are keeping everyone going. Like they really are like the engine behind everything, because they keep all of our athletes and coaches, race directors, and clubs moving forward.
Well, if the little engine that could is the engine that could, then I need to be connected with the engine that is. So
Yeah.
can you make sure that you connect me with that organization or the people within that group?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm here for that. Okay. Okay. All right. Moving back to our next question, or kind of going backwards because we went backwards to go forwards, and now we're going to kind of pick up some of the pieces. You
Love it.
mentioned this initiative, Together We Thrive. Now,
Yeah.
how did I come to know Together We Thrive? Again, going back to that roundtable that I didn't know that would have an impact, but because Megan heard me say that I was an announcer and had not necessarily challenges, but from an from a equitable and inclusive environment, announcing is definitely a male dominated area.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, well, we're having this conference. Maybe Mashonda could host it. And so I was the first host or moderator of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Access Together We Thrive for Change uh, Diversity Summit in 2020. Yes, it was an 8-hour, very intensive session. We were so serious and we got down to business. Of course, if you know me by now, it was not that serious, and I was not that serious, but it was very serious topics that we talked about. Talk about the Together We Thrive Summit and how can people be involved? Because listen, I know there's people who don't know about it, and it's open and free to all.
Yeah, Mashonda, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's one of my favorite stories. I'm like, anytime we need an announcer and MC, I'm like, oh, we should get Mashonda because like the way that we connected in the roundtable and like hearing your passion for being an MC and you know, especially in the announcers world, the lack of representation and things that are being missed because there's no representation. I just like, I will always remember that day. And anytime we need someone, I'm like, oh, let's get Mashonda. It's so great because like your energy is amazing and I love it. And doing that first Together We Thrive Actions for Change Summit in 2020, I was blown away. You went 8 hours straight. I remember sitting like in front of my computer, you know, eating my snacks and like watching all of the sessions. And I'm like, how is her energy so high still? It is it's incredible, and the really cool thing about this summit, the whole focus is on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. So every session has some sort of tie to DEIA, but more importantly, it's a summit that highlights, you know, best practices around the multisport community. So individuals who are already having an impact in their community, we talk about what they're doing, with a big emphasis on having action items to take away from the summit to, you know, foster your own, you know, actions for change. And with the summit, it's really important to us that this is a pathway, you know, almost like a foot in the door to USA Triathlon for other opportunities to present or, you know, be part of like our certifications, or start a club. And with the Actions for Change Summit, something that I've been super passionate about after our inaugural year going into year two was making sure that we use new speakers. So um, every speaker in the second annual summit was brand new to the diversity summit. Mashonda was our only repeat as an MC, but all of the speakers in the second summit, we were at 70% new speakers for USA Triathlon. So they'd never spoken for USA Triathlon before or given a presentation as part of a conference. And it opens that door, you know, once you present with us once, like it's easier to present with us again. It's almost like that, you know, once you have something, it's easier to get it again.
A little furry friend.
Um, but we're always looking for new presenters. And if you have a program that's out there, if you're a coach, a race director, a club, even just an athlete who's had an experience in the sport that is related to diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, reach out to me. I keep a list going of individuals who are interested in presenting for us. If you're interested in presenting as part of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access Summit, reach out to me. I keep a list going throughout the year of individuals who have, you know, who've reached out to share information about their program, some of the activities that clubs are doing that can be really impactful and translate into other communities. So, and this is a free summit. So if you are not sure if your program or initiative or what you're doing is relevant, come to our summit in 2022. It's completely free. It's virtual and open to everyone. We also have recordings on our website of past year's sessions. So if you have any questions about it, definitely reach out, because I love talking about. I don't know what's gotten into her.
What's her name?
Her name is Ducky, like a rubber ducky.
Ducky, what's wrong, baby girl?
Bless her heart.
Okay, baby girl, just a few more minutes. I'll let mommy take you out for a walk. A few more
She's like, I
minutes.
think you've been staring at the screen too long.
Right. And she's like, who is that face? Ugh. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Well, thank you for allowing me to be a repeat. I was almost like, I mean, are they gonna call me back? Are they gonna call me back? Was I too wild last year? What happened? I was like, oh my goodness. But when I did get the call, I was really excited. I happened to be out of town, so I couldn't do the full summit for the second annual Together We Thrive for Change conference. However, I was grateful to do the last day, and Google, was it
that
a
last day.
day?
Oh, yeah.
Listen, if you got some tea or some coffee or some something, listen, that was a good one. And I am just so thankful to have had the opportunity to be able to do Sunday. And I feel that Sunday was definitely divinely meant for me to do, because it happen to be all women that day?
Yeah.
It
It
was
was all women. Oh,
it was all women, and it was powerful. It was impactful. It was Nia Oboate. It was uh,
oh,
Sarah
Sarah Gross was
Gross,
there.
Sarah Gross, and Clarice
Yeah.
Kidd from the Asian American pro athlete. It was just, I was just in awe of that day, and just the exposure to meet these new people, new women, to see the other days on replay and be like, wow, we are really making action for change. And I am so grateful that it is under your leadership. You're doing an amazing job. So, with that said, will there be other roundtables, and how, if someone wants to get involved on a more micro level versus the macro conference level, what is it that they can do?
Yeah, great question. So the roundtable program is annual. Typically, it will happen at the beginning of each year, so the January timeframe. And they're open to anyone who's interested in attending can. I love them because it's 10 hours of me getting to meet new people and hear about their experiences. And if you're interested in getting involved, even if it's just in your local community, I get emails every day, and these are some of my favorite emails of individuals who want to start a club or want to start a diversity and inclusion arm of an existing club, or coaches who want to have an impact in the DEIA space. Just reach out. My email address, you can reach me at diversity@usatriathlon.org, and I can point you in the directions of the resources that we have available. We are releasing new resources pretty much monthly. And so just recently at our endurance exchange that was held in early March, we announced the creation of a diversity, equity, inclusion, and access certification. So this certification program is free to anyone who wants to take it. It's geared towards coaches, race directors, and clubs, but open to athletes. It is an incredible opportunity to form a base in diversity, equity, inclusion related terminology, best practices, understanding personal bias and blind spots, as well as microaggressions. So this is a great resource that if you're interested in taking, it's free. We wanted to make sure that our constituents had access to free training. A lot of times this is something that companies have to pay for, but we've created our own that is based in multi-sport situations. So everything is coming from the context of the triathlon setting. So definitely check that out. You can find it on our website at usatriathlon.org/thrive.
Wow. You talking about action, quick implementation. I know it probably didn't seem quick on your end, but to an end user like myself who was just at a roundtable in 2020 to see that this is happening in 2022, this is absolutely dope. And I'm excited because I have to be excited, even though I'm supposed to be thrilled, because I was actually at the endurance exchange. And so this is like so cool. I didn't want to make the big announcement myself, but I'm glad that you were able to do that, Megan, because you got the